why are you mad? Like, do you realize what you just asked me to do?
Mm-hmm. This is a breaking exclusive for the Real Talk Thursday family.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Real Talk Thursday.
Sorry. I'm like cheesing like the Joker. Hello. All right, everyone. So we've got a hopefully a good topic today that I think is going to help a lot of people out, things that we've struggled with in our lives. And we want to talk about how and when not to extend grace to other people when something has happened or you've been offended or things haven't gone the way that you think. How do you guys manage that? We want to talk about how we manage it. And yeah, so if you're interested, keep watching.
This conversation was inspired because of the last video that we did where we talked about why we're still single, talked about breaking cycles, and just, I don't know what else we talked about.
Yeah, we kind of talked about...
I have pregnancy brain today, guys.
A lot of different things like that Christians expect when we do behaviors that we feel like make us worthy of God giving us blessings and things like that. If you haven't watched it, go back and watch it.
It's really good. And a lot of people really loved it. But there was one comment that really stuck out. And honestly, I feel like she is probably one of many people that felt this way. And maybe didn't even, stick around. So I'll let Jerrilyn read it.
Yeah. So this is a comment that was on that last video from Shannon King. Shannon, thank you for your thoughts. She said, "These are two interesting and transparent ladies. I'm so glad I didn't throw this channel away when I became frustrated with Shanna's relationship movements. Now I see why the Lord didn't lead me to walk away, because I've had thoughts about some of these same things, but never heard anyone else talking about it in this way. I can only say and pray what the old people used to. Lord, let my will be tied to thine." Amen, girl. So why don't you start, because I'm sure this is probably, personal and, close to your heart in terms of how does it make you feel or not to know that there could be people that won't even give you a chance, even though you still have a lot of value and things to say in ways that you can bless, like, the people who are watching. Have you ever thought about that? Yeah,
I mean, it's honestly been really frustrating because, like I said in the last video, the only relationships that you guys have seen me in have been 3 in 7 years. So it's like, it's kind of interesting that people would be frustrated, because I think the original, concept of the last video was, why do people think that because we're older that, you meet somebody and it's just automatically going to work? You know what I mean? Like, we still have to go through the process. So for me, it was actually just more sad, because I'm over here thinking, I'm proud of myself because, like, even though I dated some really great guys over the last several years, my last relationship and the one before that were, good relationships, but they just weren't a good fit for me. And I was so proud of myself because I felt like I was setting an example of, like, okay, ladies, like, just because a man is a good guy doesn't mean that he's the best fit for you. And, like, I think that so many women, like we said in the last video also, settle for a man just because he's good, even if there are things that aren't working for you. If it's spiritually, if it's emotionally, is whatever, we end up sacrificing something really important to us because we just don't want to let go of this guy who is good. And sadly, it's hard to find good guys. So I was really proud of myself. So when people would leave or express, like, disappointment or, it was shocking, honestly, because, like I said, in 7 years, like, I was married, got divorced, and then 2 other relationships in 7 years. Like, there was like a good 1.5 years, 2 years in between each relationship. So I'm thinking, like, that's kind of healthy. You know, I'm not just jumping from one to another to another to another. But, and granted, like, some of the choices that I've made maybe not be acceptable for some Christians, and that's okay. But it's just something, it's a choice I made, a step I needed to take. And, yeah, so it was definitely disheartening. And I know that she's not the only one. I feel like I've gotten more positivity than negativity, but I know a lot of people, you know, even if they didn't say anything in the comments, which I would rather people just, you know, walk away than leave their opinions. A lot of people didn't stick around, you know what I mean? And that's really kind of sad to me.
I'm happy that she decided to share that.
For sure.
Because like you were saying, she, you know, she could have made the choice to go quietly into the night. Right. But she decided to stay a subscriber. Yes. And keep watching and get the value that she was able to get, especially from the last video. And it just really made me think, like, how quick we are to throw people away.
Absolutely. When
they don't. Sorry that it seems like we're both struggling.
Yes.
For one, I feel like in our area where we live, it's like really strong allergy season.
Do you close the window?
No. Flowers are blooming, birds are chirping. You maybe can even hear it in the background. And I know my allergies have been really bothering me. And then Shanna's been struggling with her gestational rhinitis.
Just been rough.
So we're both over here hocking up along. Please pardon us. But yeah, so it just made me think about like how quickly we throw people away when they don't meet our standards. And is that healthy? Is that something that we should do? Because I feel like now in this society, in this culture, instead of dealing with issues, it's more like at the first sign of people not giving you the energy that you want, you cut them off.
Yeah.
That's kind of like the expectation. And I feel like there has to be a balance for it to be healthy, because you can always take anything too far.
Yeah.
You can cut people off too quickly. You can take too long to cut people off and kind of endure some things that you maybe wouldn't have if you would have walked away. So like over the past, whether it's relationships, friendships, jobs, whatever, like what has been your experience with being disappointed by someone or a situation, and then how did you handle it, and how has it evolved over the years?
That's a good question. I will say that on one hand, I can relate to how Shannon's feeling, because even when I'm watching, you know, it's hard because, you know, I think sometimes when we watch other people in regards to like social media and stuff like that, we watch other people and we expect them to stay the same. Mm-hmm. You know, and I think that when they do grow and change or make a different decision, or you know, move in some kind of different direction that, you know, maybe we don't like or agree with or whatever, it is maybe a turnoff. And it's kind of sad. And I'm saying I'm guilty of that too, because it's not that I haven't ever thought that way. And there have been times where I've had to just, you know, maybe stop watching for a period of time or, you know, whatever. But, you know, we grow and change, and we make different decisions, and we try new things. And, you know, we're just all in the same boat here. Like, regardless of whether you're watching someone on YouTube or have a relationship with someone in real life, like, we're all just trying to figure out life and trying to figure out what is right and like what is best for us, and, you know, trying to figure out what God wants for us. So I can relate to that, but I don't just throw people away. But in real life, I think I'm a little bit quicker now to just maybe take steps back. I don't just throw people. I guess it depends on like where they are in my life. Like, it takes a lot for me to let people in, as you know. But once you're in, like, you're in. Like, I'm riding for you. So when I actually let someone in my life, then I don't let them go easily. Like, I'll go through the ringer, And like I've been in friendships where, I've been just disappointed so many times, like especially specifically a childhood friend who, I knew her my whole life. We were best friends, and it just got to a point to where I think we talked about this in one video too about just friendships, and I had to eventually stop doing all the work and see what happened.
Yeah.
And then the relationship just kind of fizzled, and I'm like, okay, it's time to let it go. But I think that as I get older, I have less tolerance because I just have less emotional energy to extend. And I think that I'm because, especially if you're close to me and like I've shown you nothing but love, and like the people that I ride with, like I'm very, I try to be generous. I'm not always the best friend. I really try, but it's hard sometimes for me now because I'm so worn out from the rest of my life. I'm trying to find my balance,
Right.
You know what I mean? So I have a little bit less tolerance, but I'm not going to lie and say, like, I feel like every friendship goes through phases. Like you're real close and then you kind of drift. And then you're like, wait, what the heck is happening? And if you're, close enough, then you kind of regroup. And then it just kind of like ebbs and flows like that. So I think I've kind of gotten to a point where I understand that, like, the people that are in my life now, like, those are my people. Those are my people. And then anybody else, like, it's going to take, it's going to take a lot for me. Like, God is going to have to really show me that they belong here in order for me to let them in, because I just feel like I have to protect myself. Did I answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to make sure. Sometimes I just go off in la la land.
No, it's okay.
Now, what about you?
So I don't think I've always been someone who's probably given like more chances than they should. And I noticed what's changed about me from earlier in my life to now is not necessarily because I feel like I still give a lot of chances like that. I kind of feel like that's just a part of my personality, but the only thing we can control about any situation is ourselves. So one thing that I have shifted to is what's my contribution to whatever is going on. So what I feel like I do better now is just like setting my own boundaries, meeting people kind of where they are and understanding, sometimes in the friendship, you're just letting it, like I have had a tendency when I was younger to always want to steer the ship.
For sure.
So now I feel like just with time and maturity, it's just like the wind is in the sails and we're just riding it and it's just going where it's going to go, if that makes more sense. So we're just both sitting back and enjoying whatever is going to happen versus me trying to feel like I have to be in, because that's how I protect myself. Like you kind of protect yourself maybe with more defensiveness. I protect myself with control. I feel like if I can control all the different little aspects, then that'll help me from not being hurt or not having to be vulnerable or whatever. And I feel like, especially in romantic relationships, wanting to be in control is very damaging to a romantic relationship. And not like, none of y'all get on the soapbox about, well, the man's supposed to be in control. And that's not what I mean. What I mean is the tendency when I feel vulnerable or afraid to like micromanage the details of daily life or whatever, especially with my kids. Like I've talked to you guys in other episodes about the anxiety I've had around my kids in terms of being a parent, with just like them being safe and them, making sure that they're okay. Because, since I'm divorced from my two daughters' dad, and I'm no longer with my son's dad, even though I see him regularly. So my kids are not always with me. So the fear of the relinquishing that control was super hard for me for a time. And the way that I counteracted that was to like always have a plan and always have like a time when I would like check in on them and all this other stuff. But I had to really get to a point to where I realized that was an area where I was really not trusting God. Like, I was not in any way, shape, or form trusting God to keep my kids safe. I was like, I have to do that.
Which I can understand how, I mean...
it's so scary.
I can understand how hard that will be.
Like,
I mean,
having a child...
Yeah.
I was telling another friend who just recently had a little girl about a couple years ago. It's the closest situation you'll ever be in to having your own heart walk around outside of your body. And there's nothing that you can do, hardly, to safeguard. So it's such a strange feeling. But I will say prayer, and I know, like, I believe in therapy. Y'all know that. But prayer has been like so instrumental for me in that, because I've even had to just learn how to talk to myself when my anxiety about my kids gets really, really high. Because I used to lay in bed and imagine all these terrible scenarios or whatever the case may be. And then I had to get to a point where when I would have those thoughts, I would be like, literally like, get behind me, Satan.
Right.
Like, no, like, that is not a true thought.
Right.
You know, my kids are currently safe in bed or safe where, you know, whatever. And I would just have to like talk myself back down. And in that process too, I realized that I wasn't giving God grace either in that situation. Like, I was even trying to control what God should be controlling. So then that's when I realized, like, okay, I really have a problem in my relationships with control. Even like at work, I'm in a point now where I have a lot of control over what I do. So I have a lot of fulfillment and I have like a lot of happiness because there's not really anyone telling me what I have to do. But I've had jobs like that before and I was always miserable.
Right.
So yeah, that's where I'm like, I have to learn how to relinquish my own control and give people the grace to do things how they want, because I can learn a lot from other people by letting them go a different way than I think they should go, and then just observing and being like, okay, like I would have never, you know what I mean? Yeah. I would have never thought about that, and just being like more collaborative in relationships.
So do you feel that you're predominantly like that more in romantic relationships and with your children, or are you like that also with your friendships? Because I feel like the dynamic of the relationship kind of changes things too.
I'll tell you how I am with my friendships. I don't think I'm very controlling. Do you feel like I'm
controlling? I don't feel like you're controlling at all. No.
Okay. I was going to say, I don't think I am. But here's what I will say about my friendships and my romantic relationships. I have a fear of being smothered. So you know how we're talking about how friendships like go through ebbs and flows. Yeah. So I have like a core group of friends that have been like my childhood, like lifelong friends. And we 100% go through those ebbs and flows because we're all grown and have families and people have spouses and kids and stuff like that. So there are times when we see each other or we don't see each other or whatever. And nobody ever makes a big deal of it. You know, it's always fine. And I feel like that's why we're a core group. But I have had friends over the years where if we go a little bit without talking or anything like that, then they're more of the mindset, hey, like, did something happen? Is everything okay? Right. Are you mad at me? And that, to me, I don't like that. Yeah. That gives me a lot of anxiety because now I feel like you have an expectation of me. For sure. To be keeping tabs and in touch with you to a certain amount of time, and I don't want to have to do that. Now, I may still do it organically, but if I feel like I'm being forced to do it, then I don't want to do it.
I understand that. So do you feel like, so in that sense, do you think that the situation is kind of reversed? Like, because I feel like that's kind of a way to kind of gain control too. Like, oh my gosh, did I do something wrong? And in relationships, I know I probably have a tendency to be a little bit more controlling like that too, because I'm afraid to lose it or something, or afraid that, you know, things are gonna go south. So maybe they're trying to regain control by doing that, and that kind of scares you.
And I think, like, you could look at it two ways, and that's where it is really important to have the Holy Spirit and be able to discern, because some people can be manipulative in terms of where the friendship is codependent, but some people, from just how they were raised or whatever, they may just really have something in their mind that tells them, I stay in constant or regular contact with the people that I love and care about.
Yeah.
So if they feel that I'm a person that they love and care about, they just may be like, okay, well, we're just going to keep this train moving. So where the grace comes in, I feel like for me is I have to understand that everyone doesn't have a negative intention.
Right.
For the things that they do differently than me. I can't automatically assume that they're trying to manipulate me or that they're trying to do something, because sometimes, like, we all just have a different frame of reference.
Absolutely.
It made me think of the video that we did where we were talking about porn and stripping and stuff like that. And those had some interesting comments too in the comment section. And somebody made the comment saying, like, you know, there are some strippers that are probably just totally fine and fulfilled. And I think they said they knew, you know, some or whatever. And it just really made me think, like, even though we don't understand that perspective, like, that's very hard, right? As a Christian person or as a parent to understand, like, okay, so, like, somebody's just cool with doing that,
or they thrive off of it.
Yes,
even.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's not true,
right?
Like, that doesn't necessarily mean that that they are deserving of any kind of judgment or criticism, you know, that we may have. And the same for, like, I think certain ways of people who, like, I can be very judgmental of people who have bad habits that I don't have. Like, people who smoke. I have a big thing about people who smoke. And in a dating relationship, that is, for me, is a deal breaker.
Agreed. I don't care if you smoke, but if I'm dating you, that's a no.
Yeah, and it's like, absolutely not. And, you know, it's okay to want somebody that obviously you're well matched to, but, like, I even have a thought, like, people who smoke, their hygiene, like, isn't as
really
good. Because I'm like, because then, you know, usually when you smoke, you smell like smoke. Sometimes, you know, your breath isn't maybe not always where it should be.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes people then have, like, the dirty fingernails.
Or if they're blonde, if they have blonde hair or gray hair that's, like, yellow. Yeah.
And I know this seems like a tangent, but I'm just using that example to say, like, there are things, big things and small things. And I think at this point in my life, I'm trying to be a lot more cognizant of the small ways that I judge people and that I'm critical of people, or what would cause me to cut someone off. Because it's not always something really big. Sometimes it's those little things. And I feel like I've grown so much, like, in the private conversations that Shanna and I have that y'all don't see, and I have another friend too, there are so many discussions that we have where we are not nowhere close to being on the same page. But I feel like through those friendships, I have grown a lot to see and understand different people's perspectives, and their areas of disagreement where some people may be like, no, like, I can't even mess with you because that's too big of a fundamental difference of disagreement that I don't even want to be bothered. And I just feel like at this point in my life, I'm like, but is that a good reason to not be someone's friend? Like, Michael, you guys will see him when we have more footage from Shanna's baby shower. But we always have these very adversarial conversations. But he's told me, like, he appreciates the fact that he can have those conversations with me, because he's had people say, like, I don't want to be your friend anymore.
Really?
Like, I'm not, we believe too different, and no, like, I'm not.
Really?
And he's lost friends. And to me, I feel like that's sad because especially as a Christian woman, I just don't feel like that's Christ's example.
Right.
That doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be a willing participant in something that diverges, from the beliefs of our faith or whatever. But I feel like it's okay to keep people close, because I'm showing, hopefully, my friend the love of Christ in a way that's like non-judgmental.
Right. I mean, because to me, like, what's the purpose of keeping only friends that believe the exact same way that you do about every single thing? Like, there's no room for growth in that.
Mm-hmm. And how do you minister to someone? And that's, if we kind of just bring it back to the point of what we were talking about, especially with Shannon King's comment. If you are in a situation where you're encountering someone and you feel like they're doing something that doesn't quite align with how you feel, why wouldn't you take that as an opportunity to genuinely pray someone through a situation, or to really genuinely encourage that person, and not with an agenda, but just because that's what you're supposed to do. Right.
Or if you're watching somebody, like, pray for them. Like, clearly she's been praying about it, because for her to have stuck around, she's probably been praying for me. Maybe I would assume.
I hope so.
And if not, just praying about whether she should continue watching me or not. But, like, if you're watching somebody and they're going in a direction that may be wrong or whatever, just different than what you feel like is right, then pray for that person. Like that. Yeah. That's absolutely true. That's what our purpose is. We're supposed to be uplifting each other and praying for each other. And if somebody goes astray, don't just, bye, good luck. Right. I don't want to watch you anymore. I don't want to see you anymore. Just pray for them and ask God to, expose the truth to them if you feel like what they're doing is wrong.
Yeah, because, not to get too deep or whatever, but when it's all time for us to meet our maker, and we have to give an account for the things that we've done in our life, as you all know, we're not going to be giving an account for what the next person did, or how we compare to another person. We can only give an account for what we actually do, what our intentions are, where our hearts are, how hard we really try to have love in that situation. And I have been guilty in the past of, even if I don't have the bad habit of cutting people off, and again, this is where you can't let comparison, be your God, because if I was to say, well, I don't cut people off, so that makes me better than people who do cut people off. Right. But that's not true, because I may not cut people off, but I don't treat people well when they have crossed a certain line with me. So then even if I continue to deal with them, I may not always deal with them in a very godlike manner. Like, I can have I have a bad temper. I know people always say you do.
I still just don't shocked about that.
I have a bad temper.
I can't see it. I hope I never do, but
I hope you never do too, because we both would clash, because we both have strong. We're both very passionate. But so sometimes I feel like, would it be better for me to cut people off so then they don't have to be at the end of my, like, I've literally, you guys, had to take it to the Lord, where I've dealt with someone in such a way that I felt bad about myself afterwards.
Really?
Of how I spoke to someone or treated someone. In my last relationship with my son's dad, he's not a person who necessarily wants to be like that going to church every Sunday type of person. He believes in God. He prays. He, all of that. But he's not, not everybody wants to go to church every Sunday. I don't know how to explain it. And so that is something that is really important to me in a relationship, is having a man who wants that, because that's what I would like for my family. That's just my own preference. So where the opportunity that I had in our relationship to just, minister to him through you know, how I behaved and how I acted and how I approached things, I feel like I really missed, I missed the, you know, mark that I probably should have been striving for, because I was just kind of judging him in a way for not being what I wanted.
Right.
And how would that, oh, I'm going to get emotional. Like, and I think back now, and it's like, I wonder how that made him feel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, when we have an opportunity to help someone, but instead we come at them with judgment, or we cut them off, or we let them know you're not meeting my standards, so you're not good enough. I often think that people don't understand how damaging that is to be on the receiving end of that. And because I care about him, you know, we have a child together and we're still friends and all that. I have to live with that.
Right.
I have to live with the weight of the fact that I could have done that better at the time and I didn't.
Have you ever talked to him about that?
No, I have not.
Maybe that's something you should talk to him about. Because it's never too late to apologize.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. I will have to pray about that. Yeah. I think it's a conversation that probably needs to happen. I am not 100% sure, because I've actually never admitted this before now. This is a breaking exclusive for the Real Talk Thursday family. So I feel like I still have some guilt and shame around the topic. So I'm not 100% sure. I'm going to have to get myself together first with God and have a couple conversations before I go. Because also I'm very intentional on not sending mixed signals to people. And when you have someone that you used to be in a relationship with who's now an ex, I also don't want to send the signal that I want to like reconcile or rectify, you know, get back together, because I don't. But I do want him to know, like, I'm sorry that you saw me up there singing, you know, every Sunday for the Sundays that he came, because he did start coming with us for a while because I made such a big fuss about it. And you saw me trying to, you know, singing all these words that sound good. And you probably didn't feel like that same love that I was singing to other people about.
I didn't know that.
So, okay, you say something, because I don't want to say nothing else.
Okay, well, this kind of applies. The same question as I had last time. Like, do you think that you're the same in that regard with friendships? Like, do you treat people, like friends that disappoint you in some way? Like, do you feel like you're rude to them? Or is it mostly...
I feel like I definitely have been, for sure. I feel like it's something that I'm growing, because I'm very opinionated and very much guilty of giving my unsolicited opinion that nobody asked for. Like, ma'am, you could have kept that to yourself and just been a quiet observer. But I'm like, you know, I have that aspect of my personality too. Now, I tend to do that more so with people who are on the fringe of friendships. I usually don't do that with very close friends, just because I feel like we know each other well enough that I know how to approach it. Like, I know what approach to take with them or not. But people that would probably consider me a friend, that I consider an acquaintance, if that makes sense, because I take the term friend very seriously. But yeah, I've done that with people, and especially, like, one of my pet peeves is when I feel like someone's being foolish. My ex-husband used to say, I'm very book smart, but I'm not very street smart. So sometimes, like, the intellectual part of my brain drives my thoughts, and then I wonder, how could you not know that? Like, you're dumb. You know what I mean? Like, I have that thought process that plays in my head a lot, and I have to really be very intentional about not letting that, and I'm in a better place with it now, but before, it's like I lived for an opportunity to make somebody feel dumb, because that was the environment that I was raised in. That's how my dad treated us. He would ask us questions as kids that he knew we probably wouldn't be able to answer, just for the opportunity of saying, like, whatever. So I picked up tendencies of that, and then I had to realize what the root cause of it was, and then try to create those new, thought, neural pathways, those new thought processes to retrain myself to not think that way and to get out of those unhealthy cycles. And it's made me think, as we're talking about giving grace to people, when to cut people off and when to not cut people off. People who I thought I may have cut off in the past may have been cutting me off. It may have been a mutual cutting off. Because they was probably like, good, I don't want to deal with you no more. So when
you cut people off, like, do you are you vocal, or do you just don't reach out anymore?
When I was younger, it was probably you just disappear. I think now that I'm older, the times that it's happened, probably the last time was a few years ago. Remember when I had the gentleman I had gone on a couple of dates with, and then we had a conversation, and something that he said hurt my feelings or rubbed me the wrong way. So then I brought it up with him because I really wanted to just give him a chance to know, hey, that rubbed me the wrong way. And then he was kind of like, well, I thought that it may be, bothered you, but I can't be trying to just be sitting around thinking about your feelings, or I can't remember what it was that he said exactly. Yes. Not Dusty Lexus. Yes. Mr. Dusty Lexus. Keep this in the video. Anyway, one of those people that is always working out but not healthy. You super built and buff, but you got high blood pressure. Miss me with that. Because I feel like a lot of men nowadays are working out to overcompensate for other things. But anyway, now I was very vocal with him to let him know, okay, if you would take the opportunity to be disrespectful to me in that way, and then even to let me know, yeah, I thought that I may have hurt you, but blah 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 blah, right. Then this needs to be where we part ways. For sure. Because there's no way that I would tolerate that in my life. Now that's something that, thank God, as I've gotten older, I've learned how more so to be an advocate for myself and speak up for myself, because that's not something that I could do when I was younger. So do you with friendships, do you so if you have an issue, are you good about communicating it, hey, when you said this, it really made me feel like this? I'm not sure if I know the answer to that, because it doesn't happen very often. Okay, well, that's a good thing. So I'm trying to think of a time when Michael actually had said something that I did go back and tell him, hey, you said that, and that really made me feel a way. That kind of hurt my feelings. It was such a random, stupid conversation. But I think that's really important, though. Yeah. To be able to do that. So I think I would be able to, but I'm so blessed in the friends that I have, because it's very low drama. I just don't have friendships that have a lot of drama. Got time for drama. So yes. What about you? Do you feel I feel like I'm really good at expressing my feelings to my friends, especially because I only keep a few people close to me. Mm-hmm. So if they did or said something that bothers me, I think I'm the kind of person that I'll say how I feel. And if it doesn't change, maybe I'll say it again. And if it doesn't change, I just won't say anything anymore. I'll just kind of back off. Okay. And I've had a friendship where, things would happen consecutively. And this is somebody I was really close with. But we had a lot of ups and downs or whatever. But then something happened, and I don't know. I think I just hit a breaking point, and I think there's a point where I stop talking. I won't say anything else anymore. I'm just going to remove myself and see what happens. Yeah. And there's I feel like there's a certain point where I feel like I personally am really good at acknowledging where I've gone wrong. Mm-hmm. Or I'm very self-aware, but I'm also aware of other people, and maybe probably overly so. Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure that I didn't do like, so for example, if you being in the birthing room, like I want to, make sure that you're comfortable too. I don't want you to feel offended if I do want all 4 people there. Not that like, is it my birthing experience? Yes. But at the same time, like, I want to make sure that you're comfortable too. So I'm very like conscious of how I could maybe be making other people feel. And not to say that I always get it right, because I'm sure I don't. But I'm very aware of that. So I'm the kind of person also that can easily receive stuff. So if I do something and you come to me and you're like, you did that and that made me feel like this, like I immediately accept it. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry I made you feel that way. Like I didn't mean to. Yeah. And like I feel like that kind of communication is really important. So that comes kind of easily for me. In relationships.
Before you go to relationships, let me just say, I feel where you're coming from, but I almost wonder too, especially when it comes to mothers and brides, right? The birthing, pregnancy, labor experience is so personal to the mother. The wedding experience is so personal to the bride. Those are 2 areas where I feel like you should never accommodate anybody else.
That's true.
Can y'all tell me in the comments if y'all agree? That's my own personal opinion. And I only say that to say, in those moments, you are inviting someone to share an experience that is uniquely yours. So that's not necessarily the time to cater to other people how they feel, because listen, if you were to ask me, well, how do you feel if I have, this other person? And I was to say, I don't know if I'd be comfortable with that. Then I am the one who shouldn't be in there, not the other person.
Which is part of the reason why I am such an extremist. Because like the way that I am with my close people, like that's how I was with like everybody for so much of my life. I'm like so worried about everybody's feelings and not worried enough about my own. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, and it's like, it's not exhausting anymore, because like, if I was like, no, I really want to have, so then I would be like, I wouldn't like, I mean, I would care about how you feel, but I would just be more like, so-and-so's going to be in there too, I hope that's okay or whatever. But like, I spent so much time just solely focused on how everybody else was feeling and neglecting how I was feeling, that, I got to the point, and I feel like I'm finding a balance now, but I went from one extreme, which was not thinking about myself at all, to only thinking about myself. Okay. Everything was no. Like, do you want to know? No. Can you do that? No. Do you want to volunteer? No. Because I was like volunteering for everything and doing everything. Yep. Oh my God. It's so, and at the time it wasn't draining until I realized, you know what I mean? Like, it takes time. And then now I'm just like, unless I really want to do it, or the person that's asking me to do it means a lot to me and they're really close to me, then most likely the answer is no.
Because in the moment it feels fulfilling, because you feel like I'm helping and I'm being a good friend, but what you don't realize is it's actually just people pleasing.
Totally.
And people pleasing is very draining.
It is draining. So I don't do it anymore. Period. Unless you're close to me and you ask me for a favor or need something, don't ask me, because I'm going to say no and I'm not going to feel bad about it.
I feel like you have a good, like, from the things I've seen, just like either from me, I've asked you to help with like my makeup, like you did me and my friend's makeup for my other friend's wedding, and you being there for John Claude, and I do feel like you have a good balance of being there for the people that you have the bandwidth to be there for. Because I feel like that's really important too when it comes to like knowing, okay, when do I cut someone off or when do I not cut someone off? You also have to be sure not to overextend yourself so much that you don't have anything left to pour out for the people who are closest to you. For sure. Because you want to pour into them first, and then everyone else gets the overflow if they're lucky, if there is any.
Right.
But
Right.
I'm going to, like, for my kids or for your son, like, you're going to pour first, and then it's going to trickle down.
Right.
And,
right.
like, not the other way around.
But I have had friends who are, like, in my circle where I think the expectations were so high.
Yeah.
Like, and almost, like, demanding that I've had to be, like, you know, I went with it for years and years and didn't realize it was sucking the life out of me. And then, you know, up to recently, it's just like, okay, no.
Yeah. Because it's okay for me to say, Shanna, like, girl, don't do that. I don't think you should do that. Then for me to be like, I told you not to do that. And why did you did it? You know what I mean? Like, that I feel like is not okay. Because what we want to do for our friends is be honest with them, share, you know, our opinion in love. But you got to support people with the decision that they make.
Absolutely. But also, like, with your friends, like, your closest friends, like, I feel like most of the people now that are, like, I have in my inner circle are not people who would have selfish, not demands, but selfish expectations. Like, you wouldn't purposely try to inconvenience me.
Right.
You wouldn't ask me for something extreme unless it was absolutely dire.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, the people that I had to let go of is like, they had these high expectations, and it was like, I said, I'm sorry, I can't do that. And they would get mad.
Yeah.
And it's like, why are you mad? Like, do you realize what you just asked me to do?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Like that's a lie. You asked me to build your house, do the landscaping.
I mean, it's like,
water the grass.
Really? You gonna ask me that and then get mad when I said, get out?
Yeah. Now, I'll tell you what I was thinking about the other day. This is going to be a positive conversation, but I probably should have told you off camera, but I'm going to tell you on camera. Hope you don't mind.
Let me strap my seatbelt on.
No, so I was thinking about in one of the other videos, you were saying how you feel like you're a generous person, and I do feel like you're a generous person. So we have had conversations about my role in your child's life. And you said to me, once I told you what, you know, how I would be willing to help, you kind of said to me, like, are you sure? Like, you would want to do that? Like, would you want anything? Like, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, like, to a certain extent, I feel like you have trouble receiving. You have a hard time. And remember when you mentioned that, like, when people want to help you or whatever, like, you're very quick to offer them money. I don't even know if I see that as generous, as almost like a defense for the fact that it's hard for you to receive.
Maybe.
Or and you don't want to feel like you owe somebody. But and tell me if you feel like I'm wrong.
I feel like that part is probably wrong.
Okay.
Because even if I pay you, I still feel like, oh my God, do you need anything?
Do you still feel like you owe?
But I think I just don't like inconveniencing other people.
Yeah. But do you think if someone came to you unprodded, unprovoked, and said, hey, I want to blah, blah, blah.
You did that.
Yeah. Do you feel like then it's not an inconvenience because they're telling you.
I know.
Like,
I'm still, like, literally this week, I was like, how much should I pay Jerrilyn?
Listen, you gonna mess around and your baby gonna have a college fund because I'm gonna take any money that you try to give me and put it away somewhere. But no, seriously, like, I was really thinking about that because, you know, we are supposed to be the hands and feet of God. Like, a lot of times I feel like people are quicker to pray than to act, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
In my prayer time with God this week, I was like thinking of all the ways. So I've been trying to work on my perspective and, you know, staying positive and things like that. So I was thinking of all the ways that God has looked out for me and my family, all the grace and peace and favor and everything that he's given me at this point in my life. And I was thanking him so much for, again, that's the overflow. I feel like he's given me so much that now I have a lot more energy that I can pour back into my family and my friendships and stuff like that. And it actually made me really happy thinking about the fact that I would be able to help you out, because I feel like that is another indication of how God is looking out for you.
No question about that.
Because it's like he's looking out for us both, but and he's using us through our actions.
Absolutely. I mean, you're absolutely right. Because I was praying about it and I just let it go because I'm like, God will make a way. And then she's like, I'm offended you didn't ask me to what? I'm like, you're what? You would want to do that?
Yeah.
Like, that's such a huge, like, it's huge. Huge. Like, anytime my clients ask me, like, what I'm going to do, and I tell them, they're like, wow, that's huge. I'm like...
Because, for one, the cost of childcare is insane.
It's stupid. And then you don't know who the hell these people are.
Okay.
Like, I won't have to even... flinch.
Yeah. And like, I remember
so much peace.
As a young mom, because with our generation, for those of us who like had kids younger like I did, a lot of our parents, who would be our baby's grandparents, were working. Like it used to be back in the day, Big Mama and Big Papa, whoever are going to be at home and can watch the kids. But, things kind of shifted because people started working longer into their life. People were having kids younger, stuff like that. So my parents and my ex-husband's parents, long ago when my daughters were first born, it's not like anyone was retired.
Right.
So people helped when they could. But if you just expected to work, you were going to have to put your child in childcare. Yes. And then if you didn't have an arm and a leg to give, you would have to find what you could afford. And a lot of times what you could afford may not be the highest quality. So then you really got to pray. So my son, who is now 10, when he was somewhere between 1 and 2 years old, he actually got hurt at a daycare. We had to take him to the hospital. So he was... just like developmentally delayed in different ways. And one of the ways was he didn't walk. He walked like super late. And, I had found like a place and, you go and you tour, you try to just pick the best that you can for what you can afford or whatever. But through whatever ended up happening, my son used to have a pacifier past, him being 1 year old. And another child attacked him for his pacifier and scratched his face all up and bit him, almost bit his eye. And, so we get to the place and, his dad is about to burn the building down. Right. And I was at work. So I had to leave work, and then you're trying to figure out what happened. And
panic.
Then anytime your child gets hurt and you take them to the hospital, then the hospital, you almost have to get CPS involved. And it's I mean, when I tell you, it brings me great joy to help you in any way that I can, because I just remember the stress of being a parent and having young kids and having that be out of my control, and the mental turmoil that it brings. So that's just a little backstory for y'all.
And I didn't even think about the injury portion of it. I was thinking more about, well, for one, how heartbreaking, how I'm so blessed. I just feel so grateful. Am I balling out of control? No. But I only work 2 days a week, at the salon. I do other things. But, how much of a blessing is that? I can't imagine having a baby and then having to work 5 out of 7 days. But then I did think about, mishandling children, but I didn't think of other children hurting children.
Yeah, and then accidents,
And then, they're kids. You know what I mean? Accidents are going to happen. But I actually did a hair of a lady years ago. And she owned a daycare. Well, she ended up getting in trouble. I don't know if she got arrested or what, but she definitely got shut down because she would give the kids Benadryl.
Y'all stop doing that to y'all kids, because I know some of y'all do that to your own kids. That is not okay. Do not do that.
Yeah, but especially somebody else's kid,
right?
Like, if you want to give Benadryl to your own kid, you going on a road trip. Do what you do, but don't give my baby no Benadryl. Right. You know what I mean? Like that, and so it definitely like. So God is so good. God, so good. But it's so interesting because like I'm thinking I have the same mentality in regards to this kind of stuff with other people, but again, I have a hard time receiving. She's so right about that. Like, even with Gabrielle, like, if she's asked me to babysit before, and I'm like, you don't have to pay me. I'm your friend. Like, you don't have to pay me. That's what friends do. Yes. And she just does not feel right to not pay me. So, like, anytime she ever asks me to babysit, she's like, okay, but if you don't want to be paid, then I'm not going to let you babysit.
Dang, she's strong-armed you.
Which I totally understand where she's coming from, because I'm so much like her in that way. But then, like, it's so funny how, like, we're so like this. Yeah. It's like you could be so much like one person, but also be so much like other person. Like, like, I don't want you to pay me. I'm your friend. Like, I want your kids for free because that's what you do. Right. But it's really interesting. But I think with relationships, I could really relate to how you were with Darnell, because I mean, I feel like when it comes to friendships, I feel like I don't know, I'm really open, but also the dynamic is so different with friendships versus romantic relationships, because, you know, I could tell you how I feel and you can, you know, you can take it or leave it. Right. But it's not really, I mean, it's going to affect me, but like I can, you know, take a step back. But when you're in a romantic relationship, taking a step back is not as easy. Yeah. So it's like, if I tell you how I feel and you just dismiss it, and I keep telling you how I feel and you keep dismissing it, then I get really passive aggressive. Okay. So I won't, but I'll apologize. Like, I feel like apologizing for me comes like super, super easily, because I never want the person to walk away without them understanding that I see where I went wrong. Because it takes two to tango, and it takes two to make a relationship fall apart, but you also can't, the only person you can control is yourself. Right. You know what I mean? So you can only control what you do. So, but you can still, you know, take responsibility for where you went wrong, but still not accept the fact that they did nothing to change anything. You know what I mean? But I get really passive aggressive, and I can be really mean sometimes too. And it's, you know, passive aggressive, I think men hate that more than anything.
I don't know. I think men hate aggressive too, because I can be that way.
Really?
Yeah, I would say I'm more aggressively aggressive than passive aggressive. Okay. Like, if I ever click into a passive aggressive, everybody needs to just run, because that means some shit about to go down. Like, that's not really like in my nature. My nature is more so like, now I'm not the person to like curse people out or anything like that. But again, I take an intellectual approach to everything. And my brother explained it to me one day so well. And it was very eye-opening. He said, when you talk to people that you disagree with, like when you feel comfortable to put your forceful disagreement out, you just go through it in a way that is so belittling. And I was like, ooh.
So you can like cuss somebody out without cussing them out?
Yes. Okay. Like, it's one of those things where like, okay, so did you pay attention to what was going on? Like, did you think these things through? Because judging by your actions, like, if you knew this, why would you do that? Like, it gets to be just very much like, I'm getting ready to show you how dumb you are, and you should feel dumb and you should feel small.
Which is what Will Smith should have done.
You're so funny. And in closing, we're letting that to rest. Rest in peace.
Right. Rest in peace.
But I don't want to do any of that. Right. I want to get to a point where I give people grace. I meet them where they are. I I seek understanding first. And then if we just get to a point where it's not coming together, then at that point, you know, it can be like, you know, it doesn't seem like, and whether it's a romantic relationship, friendship, job, but whatever, because we got some toxic jobs too. You want to get to the point where you're like, it just doesn't seem like both of our needs are being met, and you want to part in a way that is respectful, where people still have their dignity and everything else, you know, because I don't believe in burning bridges. So that is something that I am still actively working on, because I've noticed it popping up at work, because I tend to be, I can have like a very bossy component of my personality. So when I have to lead things at work, which I more so do now than I did before, I can be harsher with people than I intend to be, because it's just muscle memory, and you have to be mindful of the things that you do wrong to correct them. So now that I'm mindful, I have to work and be intentional on scaling that back and treating people with respect and recognizing and respecting differences. And when someone sees things differently than me, or they don't understand where I'm coming from, use it as an opportunity for both of us to get better, rather than being like, wow, you're really dumb.
Right.
Which is how I feel.
I mean, the fact that you're able to step back and acknowledge that and even see it, I think that is like the absolute hardest thing for people to do.
Yeah.
Is to step back and look into themselves and like be like, and recognize like that's probably not a good thing.
Yes, absolutely. And you know, with us being single, I was just thinking really the other day, like, thank God that I'm kind of in this period where I'm hidden from men, because literally it feels like I'm invisible. But I honestly feel like it's because there are some things that God is still like refining, some things that he's still working out of me, that I mean, it's going to be to my betterment anyway, and it's going to better my family. But I feel like then hopefully whoever God has for me is going through his own process, and we have to get to where God wants us to be before he allows our paths to intersect. And I feel like, well, maybe I'm just not there quite yet.
It's unbelievable how many Christians don't have that perspective.
Well, it's hard.
It is very hard.
Our flesh takes over and tells us different things, and tells us that we feel lonely, or even tells us like, man, I'm doing all these great things. Imagine how much more I could do with a kingdom partner, you know. God, I just want to elevate your kingdom. Right. Really, it's like, I just want a fresh pair of thighs. I
mean, for rizzles.
So, you know, it's hard. And I don't say that to even try to be like self-righteous, like, yes, I have all this together. It's been like a, you know, refining means that you have to be put into a fire. So it's been a process that is not like always pretty. It's been very painful. It's been lonely. It's been a lot of self-doubt. It's self-examining, like all of these other things, which end up having great results. But as someone said in one of your comments, it's like a beautiful disaster. Mm.
Yeah.
It's like this mess that turns into something beautiful.
And it's never ending.
Yeah.
You know, because, I mean, I think it gets easier to recognize things as the time goes on and the more you do it. But it's not easy. Like, it's challenging, and it's, like, there's always going to be something that we need to refine, to be refined. Mm-hmm. There's always going to be something. And it's just a lifelong, you know, trial and error and, you know, just constant growth.
What would you say, as we get closer to putting a bow on this for you guys, what would you say would be some good signs of when it is time to walk away?
I think the biggest sign, one, if it's not like mutual in energy exchange. Mm-hmm. I think that I think that's tough too, because it's not, sometimes I'm not always, well, I'm better with like my closest people. Like, I hope that you feel that I exchange
Yes.
as much as you give. And if I don't, I pray that you would tell me. But I feel like, because I really, honestly, like, I don't have that many, like, close people that, like, I see regularly. But if you feel like you're the only one giving, whether it's emotionally, if you're just being supportive, if you're checking in just to see how they're doing, if you're, you know, doing things, or whatever it is, if you feel like you're the only one giving and you're just exhausted and drained, and then I think it's time to let it go.
I think you made a good point when you said earlier in this conversation that you had a friendship where you stepped back and you were almost kind of like just to see what was going to happen. I think even though in relationships, especially romantic relationships, especially marriages, we don't want to mislead anyone in thinking that everyone's always going to be at the same energy or intensity level. But what you don't want is when you're at a period where you're down and you can't give as much, then the other person, what makes it mutual is then the other person's like, oh, I'm stepping up. Like, that's what makes good marriages good.
Yes.
Is that you're almost like counteracting and balancing what each person is able to give. You know, sometimes the wife has to like really step up if the husband has something going on, and then sometimes the husband really has to step up and cover the wife and things she's doing or whatever the case may be. What you don't want is you step back and everything falls apart because the other person doesn't step up.
Right.
So yes, I think that is a great sign of when it's like, for
sure. But also understand, I guess that's a good, I mean, I should probably go into that a little bit more, because that friendship, it was like over the course of like, how many years? Like 10, 15 years of me carrying the friendship.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I moved away. This is a friend that was in Chicago. I moved away. I was always driving to come see her and always supporting her. Always, you know, and then, oh, I'm going to come see you next week. Oh, I'm going to come see you this season. I'm going to come see you next season. Oh, and then 10 years go by, but you're going on all these other trips to like Jamaica and like all these places. It's like, I'm 4 hours away, but you go and travel, you know what I mean? But you never have money to come see me, but you can go and travel to all these, like, that's the kind of thing. It's not like, oh, well, this month you didn't do, you weren't a good friend, you know what I mean? It's like, over the course of time, like, you have to give people grace, you have to extend grace, like we said, you ebb and flow, everybody's not going to be at their best, and that's a really good point, because in marriages, like, that's inevitable. But in friendships, it is too. You know what I mean? You can't just dismiss somebody just like that, just because they didn't do what you wanted to do, or even if it's you know, for a year where they haven't been as supportive. You still gotta, you know, extend a little bit of grace. Communicate. Like, I mean, you gotta pull out all the stops before you let somebody go too. You can't just be like, you know, you can't just have in your head all the things that they do that bother you or have done or said that bothered you and then never express it to them. You got to give people chances. Like, but if you give people chances, like, hey, like this is what's really bothering me, and this is what it's, you know, kind of done for me, and this is why I feel this way. And you constantly express that, but they never do anything to like either fix it or, you know, adjust or whatever. Because, you know, I think, you know, any relationship is an adjustment. Yeah. You know, like, you're not just going to, you know, I think that people think in romantic relationships too, like, you're just going to meet somebody, they're going to be so perfect, you're just going to fit like a puzzle piece, and then you're just going to run off frolicking, you know, in happily ever after land. Like, no. Doesn't work that way. It's usually a setup. It's usually a setup. And they have many others on the side. Right, okay. They was frolicking, all right. They're frolicking all over the land.
No, so I feel like that's a good point when you're talking about, like, having grace when, you know, if you have a friend that you feel like is not supporting you. It kind of made me think about Gabrielle. Now, I am not as close friends with her as you are, even though we are very friendly towards each other and we know each other, obviously. But I remember telling you that I don't often watch their YouTube videos. And just for me, I do not support her in that way, because I am at a point where it's sometimes hard for me to watch married people, if that makes sense. Because if I'm not in a good headspace that day, it could be triggering. But then I try to support her in other ways. Like, she'll have things like on her Instagram that she's gotten together with other ladies, and we put together this guide for, and I'll buy that, and I don't even care if I ain't never gonna look at it, which usually is what happens. You know, she want to sell some resistance bands, I'm gonna buy them, you know, just as a way to support. But sometimes people are not supporting you not out of malice. Sometimes it's because there's something going on with them that prevents them from, it's like a block of something that they're going through, or an insecurity of their own, that makes it a little bit difficult to support you in certain types of ways. And I think it's good to be mindful of that, or to not hold that against people. For sure.
That's a really, really, really good point.
Well, let's then wrap it up. Then I'd love to be the last one to give a good point.
In that case, here's another good point I was playing. If you have a friend like that, you need to let him go.
Oh, I see your one, and I'll raise your one better.
Right. Oh, the one-uppers. Ooh, so, yeah.
Now that I probably will have no tolerance for it.
Yeah, I don't.
Because, like, I'm not trying to compete with any of my friends. I'm trying to uplift us all and see us all.
Which is a good point. A competing friend, which I had, and I had to let that one go too.
Cut those off quick.
Quick.
Yeah, cut those off quick.
So hopefully you guys got some value out of this video. Let us know in the comments what you think. We would love you guys, if you have any topics or any personal questions and you want to remain anonymous, we will definitely not say your name, but if you have a situation that you want advice on, or our perspectives on, that we would love to use your topic as a Real Talk Thursday. So rttquestions@gmail.com is where to send your questions. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and all that good stuff. And if you like this video, give us a thumbs up, comment, share, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next Real Talk Thursday. Bye.